Her name is Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She was 14 years old, and on April 23rd, 2025, she got into an Uber. Her last text message said, "I'm almost there. Open the door if you're home." After that, her phone went silent. She was never seen alive again. The man she was going to see is David Burke, known online as David, a musician with millions of listeners, millions of young fans, a growing career, and a secret that has now gone to trial. That is the most disturbing story I have ever covered on this channel. And I need you to understand that before we go any further. David Burke is a musician who built a massive following in his late teens, dark atmospheric music, millions of streams, a record deal worth over $12 million, a public profile that made him one of the most talked about young artists of this generation. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was a 14-year-old girl from California. She was born September 7, 2010. She liked music, she had a family, she had friends, she had a whole life ahead of her. According to prosecutors, David and Celeste first made contact in January 2022 when she was 11 years old and he was 16. By November 2023, when Celeste was 13 and David had just turned 18, prosecutors say a sexual relationship began. What followed over the next year and a half, as documented in thousands of text messages, is one of the most disturbing cases of child exploitation I have ever read about. Prosecutors presented text messages recovered from David's phone during the preliminary hearing. Those messages painted a picture of a relationship that was manipulated from the beginning. By December 2023, Celeste was 13 years old. The message showed David coaching her on birth control. They show her asking about pregnancy. They show her taking Plan B. By January 2024, prosecutors say Celeste became pregnant. She was 13 and she became pregnant. That is the most disturbing news I have ever heard. The messages show the two discussing terminating the pregnancy. David is heard asking, "When are you going to get it done?" It got done 2 days later, a 13-year-old girl, and the messages continued. In February 2024, David coordinated for Celeste to secretly leave her home at night, with him and his security guard waiting nearby to pick her up. She was reported missing. Riverside Country Police contacted David. He told them he was not aware she was a minor. He told them he had only met her once. Deputies went to his home. They told him directly she is 13 years old and she is a runaway. According to prosecutors, after being told this is by law enforcement, David continued the relationship. He drove to her school and paid a classmate $1,000 to hand Celeste a phone he had purchased so they could keep talking. Throughout 2024, Celeste spends extended time with David, including weekends at his Hollywood Hills home. She traveled with him to Las Vegas, to London, to Texas to meet his family. Her parents signed a travel consent form allowing her to go to London with him without the family member present. She was 13 or 14 years old. The text messages show her becoming more and more conflicted about the relationship, more frightened, more regretful. At one point, she wrote, "I took my child off this earth for you. I will do anything to have the kid back. I still took the life of an innocent, literal baby." She was 14 and she was writing those words about her unterminated pregnancy. By March 2024, Celeste tried to end things. She told David, "I just want to move on. I want more of myself. We can be online friends but not in person." David said, "Okay." They stopped talking for about 6 weeks, and then on April 22nd, 2025, contact resumed. They had been arguing. Celeste was jealous about another woman in David's life. The message showed her becoming increasingly distressed and angry. She made threats. She said she would expose the relationship, that she would end his career, that she had information about him that she would leak. These were the words of a 14-year-old girl who felt hurt and betrayed by someone who had manipulated her since she was 11. The following day, April 23rd, 2025, David ordered an Uber to collect her from her home and bring her to his house in Hollywood Hills. At 8 p.m., Celeste sent him a text. She said, "I'm almost there. Open your door if you're home." He replied, "I got you." At 10:10 p.m., he sent, "The gate is open. Door is unlocked." At 10:31 p.m., he sent, "Uber said you're here. Where are you?" After that, he sent multiple messages asking where she was, saying she was carrying him. His final messages were sent at 11:41 p.m. Celeste never responded. She was never seen alive again. According to prosecutors, in the roughly 20 minutes between 10:10 and 10:31 p.m., Celeste Rivas was killed. She was 14 years old. In September 2025, months after Celeste disappeared, her decomposed and dismembered remains were found inside the front trunk of a Tesla registered to David. The vehicle had abandoned and eventually towed. Prosecutor presented the following evidence during the parliamentary hearing: the blood evidence and DNA found inside David's garage, purchases David made shortly after Celeste disappeared, including chainsaws, a body bag, a shovel, an inflatable pool, and the fragments of that inflatable pool were found embedded in Celeste's clothes. The medical examiner classified her death as a homicide caused by multiple penetrating injuries. The decomposition of her body made it impossible to determine exactly when she died or the precise sequence of what happened. But the case was homicide. Prosecutors also presented phone and Tesla data showing David's vehicle traveling towards Santa Barbara Country the night Celeste disappeared and returning to the same area 2 more times in May. Celeste's passport card was later found by a bystander in that same area. After 5 days of parliamentary hearing testimony, 12 witnesses, thousands of text messages, and what prosecutors describe as a small fraction of the total evidence they have, the judge decided the case is going to trial. David Burke has been ordered to stand trial on 3 charges: murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14, and unlawful mutilation of human remains. He has pleaded not guilty. He remains in custody without bail. The district attorney office is also considering whether to seek the death penalty. The decision has not been made yet. Parliamentary hearing is not a trial. It does not determine guilt. It only determines whether there is enough evidence for the case to proceed. So the judge decided there was a trial. Prosecutors will need to prove every element of every charge beyond a reasonable doubt to 12 jurors unanimously. That is a significantly higher standard, and David's defense will present their own case. But the district attorney said publicly that what was presented in the parliamentary hearing was a small fraction of what they have. The trial date has not been confirmed yet. The next court date is August 31st for arraignment. There are things about this case that go beyond David. Evidence presented in court suggests that multiple adults around Celeste were aware of their relationship. Her parents, member of David's circle, people in the music industry. A teacher reportedly saw him pick her up from school. Her parents signed travel concern forms. She attended his concerts. She appeared on his live stream. This was not a secret that nobody knew about, and yet nobody stopped it. A missing person report was filed. Police went to David's home. They told him she was 13, and the relationship continued for another year until she was dead. But I'm not going to tell you what I think should happen to anyone outside of David. Those decisions belong to investigators and prosecutors. But what I will say is this: Celeste was let down by multiple adults who had the power to protect her and chose not to, whether out of ignorance, fear, as some have suggested, financial and social incentive. She was let down, and she paid for it with her life. David Burke is going to trial. The case prosecutor had described the text messages, the forensic evidence, the digital trial, the purchase, the pull fragments found on her cloth. All of it will now be presented to a jury, and a jury will decide. But whatever happens in that courtroom, there is one thing that has already been decided. Celeste Rivers was a child. She deserved to be protected. She deserved the chance to grow up, to figure out who she was, to have a full life. Instead, her name is full attached to one of the most disturbing cases in recent memory. And in the center of all of this, behind the record deal, behind millions of listening and a growing career, was a 14-year-old girl who got into an Uber and never came home. Rest in peace, Celeste. So yeah, that's it guys for today's video. Let me know what you think about this David situation, and I'll see you in the next video. For now on, peace out.